Welcome to Quilt Blocks on American Barns. I'm just a country gal. I'm Orion Burns. Well, we're working our way through the countryside, just checking out barns with 8-foot wooden quilt blocks painted on them. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Gothic Barn. Now, the Gothic Barn features a unique curved roof, which is the signature of the building, and then the lower level is usually concrete brick with a large open space in the interior for a milking parlor. Well, the upper level is usually wood with increased interior storage capacity for hay and an overhead conveyor. Well, the quilt block is Country Lanes, and it was originally published by Mountain Mist Batting Company. You know, it's only a 3-inch finish size block on a 12-inch barn. That's little. But on the 6-inch barn, the block is only 1.5 inches square, really small. Well, Sue Peters made this wall hanging, and she called it the Funny Farm. Well, Sue's preference is toward bright, cheery fabric, so she was just in hog heaven while sewing on this frivolous wall hanging. Well, on the Gothic Barn, she added a cartoon-like oversized chicken, just giving it a comical nature. And then chickens and roosters have something to crow about with their electrifying orange bank barn. Well, the Dutch barn is pink with chickens bigger than the barn. Ooh, I love it. And I found this fussy cut piece of fabric that the chickens were cut from. Well, the dotted turquoise gambrel roof barn with its striped barnyard, just fun to enjoy. And then that good-natured cow chews on her cud in the monitor barn. She's just contented to watch the world go by. You know, you can't help but smile over Sue's whimsical quilt. Well, I'm going to get the Country Lanes block ready. The Country Lanes block has 21 pieces in it. That is a lot of pieces. And on this block, like no other, the seam allowance and straight sewing are very important. I'll confess, I'll show you what I did. Just by making an addition of 1/8 inch on my strips or even a width on my seam allowance, I ended up with all of these different blocks that weren't quite the right size. So I've worked out those measurements and I hope they're good for you. So we're going to start with strips. The yellow are 1 1/8 by 5 inches. There's 2 of them. You've got a blue the same size and a black the same size. And we're going to make these pieces for a little 4-patch right in the corner. Got 4 of them. So just take the blue, flip it right sides together, and the black right sides together. Now this block does take a scant 1/4 of an inch. And by a scant, I mean just 1 thread less than a 1/4. On my machine, when I turn it on, it turns on at 3.5 width. And actually, by moving the needle 1 thread to the right, I have that perfect scant 1/4. So I've got it set at 4.0. It's at 2.0 stitch length, and just put these strips right through one after the other. Also check your needle, because you know if you have a bent needle, oh my gosh, that can just mess you up too. So check all of these things. Typical things like use your stiletto to help push those strips along, and use lots of steam. I'm with steam. So I like to use this pressing mat with the lines across it, especially with these little strips. Oh, you can get these bows in them and they just don't work. So set the seam with the dark on the top and then carefully open them so that there's no folds in either one of the strips. Well, I think that was the easiest part. Let's move on. Okay, now take the blue and yellow, put it on your cutting mat with blue on the bottom. The second piece goes with the black at the top. And when you measure these, they should be 1 1/8 inches. Woo, we're looking good. Okay, so just straighten that left edge and then cut 4 1 1/8 inch pieces. Let's see, 1 1/8. If you can get a ruler that has 1/8 and 1/16 on. That is so tiny. But this is for the 12-inch barn. They just keep on getting smaller and smaller. So cut along, make sure that you're following those measurements completely from top to bottom. One more cut, and I'm going to just stack these up a little bit on the end, get rid of that. Okay, stiletto is extremely useful at this time. It helps you feed them through. So the way I like to work is have the seam on the top going up, because it just jams into the underneath one when you go across there. So grab hold of that and just hold each one of those seams flat as you go across. I have never done very many miniatures, but Sue does lots of miniatures, and she's given me some good tips that have really helped me out to keep each of these pieces. You know, you just saw a little crooked end. Boy, it just takes the whole thing off. Well, we're going to do that magic swirling trick in the middle. This time we don't have any seams to unsew. If you just clip these connected ones apart, open it wrong side up, and then at the top seam, push it to the right, and the underneath seam, push to the left. And that just opens up the seams in the middle. You can just take that, mush it down good, and set it, and you are ready to go. Okay, let's get all of these going across here. This one, usually I have to take my seam ripper, unsew little stitches, but since we cut them, you don't actually need to unsew any stitches. Just push with your finger to the right, this to the left. Check on the right side and see if it's flat. I like to use steam so that they lay flat, especially whenever they can easily turn on you. Okay, now the lattice is next. Ooh, let's see. Nice and hot. The lattice is 3/4 inches in length, 1 3/4 inches in length. So I want to just make sure the block is exactly that same size. So if you just take your 6-inch square up ruler and put 3/4 there, 1 3/4 there, 1 3/4 there, that actually looks pretty good. It's so little. But now let's just go ahead and put a little 3/4 inch square right in the middle for the lattice. We're going to put all of these pieces around the outside edge. Need one more piece. And this time turn the black into the middle on all 4 of them. Oh, this is looking cute. Okay, so the block is laid out. Then all you have to do is just flip the middle row right sides together, just assembly line sew it, and then open it back up and add the 3rd row. And I already did it on this one. Have them connected together, and you can see that the seams are pressed in towards the lattice, toward the lattice. So all you have to do for the last seam is just flip them right sides together, and they will lock. Well, I have the little guys for the 6-inch barn laid out. This block is only a 1 1/2 inch finish size, or 2 inches. And the pieces were so small that I actually made them a little oversized. I want to cut them into 1-inch pieces now. So if you put 1/2 inch right on the seam and cut it off on one side, turn it around and do it on the opposite side, 1 inches, then you get these very small blocks that you can put here. Now, if you find out that you're having a hard time with the 1/4 inch seam, you can sew a 1/4 inch on an oversized piece and then just go ahead and trim back the seam to 1/8 inch after you're done, because these pieces are so small, they start overlapping. So I'm just going to finish this and I'll show you the barn. I actually did visit a Gothic barn. Well, this is the Gothic barn in Sac County, Iowa, and we visited the Liskey family, and what a great time we had. They told me that the slab that the barn was built on was started before the war, but since wood was scarce, they couldn't finish the barn, and so the family roller skated on the slab. I think that's a great use of a slab, huh? Well, now the barn is completely renovated. They took us upstairs and showed us the beautiful curved roof line. And they play basketball. It's that big for a basketball court. And they have their family parties and their gatherings upstairs. Perfect. You know, that barn could have been from Sears and Roebuck. Very interesting. I found this ad in a magazine, and it says, okay, already cut and fitted price. $530 and up. Can you imagine? Well, they refer to this as the Cyclone Modern Barn. I have a feeling this was probably more like $1,000, but that's not even bad. That's a great price. And what's interesting, inside, up in the roof line, you can see where Sears stamped the numbers on the pieces of wood, so everybody could actually put that barn together. I think that'd be a lot of fun, kind of like barn by number. Well, I have my roof laid out. My block ended up being a great 3.5 inches. I'm excited about that. These are rectangles on either side and on the top and the bottom, because we want to get that nice curve in there. So just start in the middle row. We're going to just flip these pieces right sides together, sew with the block on the top so that you can see how the seams are pressed so you don't get those all twisted around. I'm still in that scant 1/4 inch. So if this block is just a little bit larger, you can do a little sliver trimming, or you could make the rectangle, that piece, a little bit larger too. So down one side, cut, and set it on the other side. Well, when I was in Iowa, I had the opportunity to visit with the Liskys, and what a great time. Very kind, good old Iowa generosity and friendliness. The first thing they did was invite us in and asked if we could sit down and have a cup of coffee. Oh my gosh, we were on the barn trail, so we didn't have time. So I'm going to take this and press the seams away from the block. Okay, right here. You do it with your fingernails, with your wooden iron. But now center this piece right on top, flip it right sides together, and just sew it again with the block on the top. Keep everything centered. Well, when we didn't have time for coffee, they were so generous. They had already baked muffins that morning. They put muffins in a little bag for us, and the best thing was the raspberries. They had just picked fresh raspberries and set us off to the Sac County Quilt Show with a big bag full of raspberries. What a trip. We did go on, and we went and visited some of the other barns that day and ended up at the quilt show looking at all of the beautiful quilts. Good time. Okay, I have just one more piece. I'm going to add on there. Again, we're going to just press this seam away from the block. That's going up. Center it. Find out where we've got the center on this one. A little bit of scratching with your nail to match up with the center. And this is going to go on the bottom. Well, I did go ahead and get my little block done for my 6-inch block, my 6-inch barn. It is only 2 inches and 1.5 inch finish size. And I tell you, I'm pretty proud of that. Maybe the best one that I've ever done. Now, I can certainly understand if you don't want to go and do all of those 21 pieces. You're welcome to just look for a fussy cut. That's a piece of fussy cut fabric that I cut 2 inches, and you can just insert that right into your barn in place of piecing country lanes. Okay, let's see how we've got a good shape going here. Looking like it's going to just curve up and down. How about a final pressing? This time just all away from the barn on the top and then across on the bottom. Now, to do the roof, it's an applique technique. Oh my. We're going to do it the easy way. No needle turn. Well, I already have a piece of light to medium weight non-woven fusible interfacing. And all I want to do is just put this smooth side up on my shape. The pattern is already printed on it, or you can just go ahead and trace your own. To do this, to sew this down, I'm just going to change the stitch length. I'm going to put on a little stitch. I'm going to go to 1.8. And the next thing I want to do is lighten the pressure on my presser foot. We're going to be sewing on this fusible interfacing. I lightened the pressure on my presser foot, and the next thing I need is just an open toe applique foot. Needs to be metal. Metal slides along on this. Okay, let's get that foot on there. Okay, my foot's on, and all I'm going to do is get this centered perfectly and just sew on the line. Okay, put your foot down, put your needle in, just go ahead and stitch right around this curve. I'm going to finish this, and then I'll show you how to finish your barn. I finished my stitching around the roof line. Now all I have to do is trim 1/8 inch away. And when I say 1/8 inch away, everybody gets a little nervous about it. But you really do honestly have to do 1/8 inch away, so you don't have to go back and do all of that clipping and snipping to get this curve turned out nice. Ooh, I'm on the home stretch. Just a little bit more. Much easier than needle turn. Just take this, get rid of it. Oh, and that too. Then take your fusible interfacing, turn the whole piece right side out. At this point, I like to use a tool called the point turner. You can see it needs a little help, but the point turner has a nice curved edge and the point. So just place it down with your fusing on the bottom, just roll around that outside edge. Ooh, it's looking good. Now you don't want the interfacing to show, so just do a little tuck under, make sure the interfacing is not showing. How about the point right on the top of that Gothic barn? Ooh, great. Well, I have directional sky today. Look at the clouds. They look like they're just floating by. The next step is to place the Gothic barn right in the center. You definitely want to have at least 1/4 inch on both sides. And actually this piece is oversized, so it'll work great. The fusing is on the back side now. Have a nice hot iron. Steam. You want to have water in your iron. Give it a shot of steam so it just adheres it. Press the whole way around. Give a good shot. And then the last step is to just turn it over and fuse from the back side, because now the fabric is right next to that fusing and it is going to stick in place. Perfect. Now, to give the wood grain, I like to use black thread and just stitch lines on it. It'd probably be a lot easier if you did a piece of wood, but I'm going to kind of fake this wood. So I put black thread in my needle and in my bobbin. Right here, I want to lock the threads right on the outside edge, and I'm just going to start out by stitching in the ditch right along this line, just to give it some dimension. And then once you stitch in the ditch right through this seam, then lock your threads, the opposite end, cut them, and then you can use the width of the foot to just go ahead and sew straight across there. So let's just put this straight down, line up the edge of the foot with that previous thread line, lock the threads right in the beginning, and then just sew along there. You can use a wide, thick thread so you really see that dimension, and just keep on going up to the top and then back down to the bottom until you have it completely covered. Well, I know I'm not going to get this all done, but at least you can see my fake wood. Now, I already stitched the bottom together. Love the red brick. It's perfect. And all it is rectangles with the door in the middle, and then rectangles on the top and the bottom. Next, we have to give it some windows. This is actually black fabric with paperback fusible on the back. There's fusing on there right now. It's cut 1 1/8 by 1 1/4. They're little rectangles. They look just like the Liskey barn. So go ahead and get these peeled in place and then fuse those down. The roof goes on top like so. Ooh, it's looking good. And let's just move right down here because I did some stitching, some zigzag stitching on the windows. Did through the middle and then around the outside edge. Gray bricks. It's looking perfect. So there are just 3 units that get stitched together like this. Got a little grass piece on the bottom. And all I have left is just one funky pig waiting to show off. So then for the last thing is I did a wide zigzag stitch around the outside edge just to create that roof line on the Gothic barn. Well, this one is totally funky. Forget the bricks. You can use polka dots and little checks just like Sue did. That's a lot of fun. And the little one is really adorable with a cow hanging out in the grass. So you can do funky animals or you can do some realistic animals. Nonetheless, have fun with your Gothic barn. The Country Lanes pattern was introduced by the Mountain Mist Batting Company on one of their wrappers. You know, this wrapper is from 1949. The company was very smart. While quilters were finishing their quilt, they started to think about their next project. And inside was a free pattern. Just perfect. This is very fragile. Well, I love this Country Lane block in beautiful green and white. Wonderful. Well, I recreated the traditional Country Lanes pattern in soft colors of pink and green. It's like a bed of roses on a summer day. The quilting in the side triangles is perfect. Well, just the name Country Lanes reminds me of my Grandma Nagel's house and her long country lane with beautiful shade trees. I remember walking down that country lane to the mailbox. I was always eager to see what mail came. Well, I can imagine a country woman in the 1930s isolated from a town without a general store to shop for her quilting supplies. She walks down her country lane to her mailbox and discovers a package from Paragon called Country Garden. The package contained a 100% cotton percale, stamped for embroidery and quilting. And here it is, all finished. The original quilter never did get it done. My Aunt Ann Peffer expertly finished the cross-stitching. And a lovely group of quilters from Alma, Kansas did the quilting. It's just a gorgeous quilt. Love all that cross-stitch. Well, on another day, a walk to the mailbox might have brought an envelope from Aunt Martha of colonial patterns from Kansas City, Missouri. And inside, oh my gosh, the anticipation, she discovered the Quilt Lover's Delight. Oh my, 7 applique and 10-piece patterns. Well, this pattern is called Rose Point, and inside are all of the templates, so you can hand cut and hand piece it together. Well, I know a quilter pulled this pattern from her mailbox and made this quilt. You know, the instructions actually say to make pink buds with a harmonizing green, and she did exactly what she's told. It's just a beautiful quilt. Well, I still get excited when I go to my mailbox. Marcia Jackson just sent me an envelope with a Hawaiian sleep, very fragile, sleepyhead quilt. It's a darling printed quilt pattern, and right here it says, copyright 1944. Well, this is even older than me, so I want to carefully unwrap this and show you this printed baby covering. It's really cute, and I cannot wait to hand quilt it. It's just beautiful. So here we have the little sleepy characters right in the middle. the little bunnies, the little puppies. These lines are marked for hand quilting. You know, some things never change. Now we mail order on the internet and we look forward to every parcel. May quilting give you pleasure no matter who delivers it.